Thank you all for having me join your meeting today. My name is Kelly Samuels. I am with FSA. I am the conservation specialist at the state office here in Kentucky. Mr. Brian Lacefield is the state executive director here in Kentucky. The Farm Service Agency is divided into the state office and county offices. Within the Kentucky state office, we have program specialists who help administer the farm programs with the county offices, farm loan department, and the admin department. Many of you may be more familiar with our 64 county offices that are distributed throughout the state. Producers who are interested in any of the programs offered through FSA may visit any of these offices or find your local office if you're not sure where they are by visiting farmers.gov. The 64 county offices are responsible for administering the conservation program, and I have listed the top 10 counties in the state based on the annual CRP payments that are produced each year. And within Kentucky, we have a very impressive grand total payments for CRP totaling $32,826,401, with a total of 198,438 acres enrolled across the state. Now, to explain a little bit more about the conservation program, CRP is a land conservation program administered by FSA. FSA will provide cost share to install conservation practices and make annual rental payments if farmers voluntarily enroll in the program and agree to remove environmentally sensitive land from ag production and plant species that will improve environmental health and quality. Contracts for land enrolled in CRP generally range from 10 to 15 years in length. For the first time in CRP history, the Farm Bill has provided FSA with a goal for continuous CRP sign-up of 8.6 million acres by the end of the Farm Bill in 2023. At this time, FSA has approximately 7.8 million acres enrolled in continuous CRP. Why is CRP important? Signed into law by President Ronald Reagan in 1985, CRP is one of the largest private land conservation programs in the United States. Thanks to voluntary participation by farmers and landowners, the long-term goal of the CRP program is to reestablish valuable land cover to help improve water quality, prevent soil erosion, and reduce loss of wildlife habitat. Since its creation in 1985, CRP has reduced nitrogen and phosphorus from fields that otherwise would enter lakes and streams and rivers by 95 and 85%. One may ask, how can CRP help protect wildlife? The Conservation Reserve Program can help protect wildlife by creating habitats, providing a food source, and helping to keep the ecosystem in balance. There are a few different options within the Conservation Reserve Program. The general sign-up, in which whole fields are eligible to be offered in a competitive evaluation process. The continuous CRP sign-up is used to enroll small, targeted, environmentally sensitive acreage and can be done at any time. And finally, the grassland sign-up, that is somewhat like the general sign-up in that this sign-up period is announced in a competitive evaluation process, but CRP grasslands provides both ecological and economic benefits. Participants voluntarily limit future development and cropping uses of the land while retaining the right to conduct common grazing practices and operations related to the production of forage and seeding. Now, let's take a look at what eligibility factors come into play with the program itself. So the land eligibility. Land qualifying as eligible cropland must have a history of being cropped or considered cropped 4 of 6 years, and we are looking at 2012 through 2017 for those 4 out of 6 years. The land must currently be physically and legally capable of being planted in a normal manner to an agricultural commodity. It is very important to understand that land qualifying as eligible cropland will receive an annual rental payment based on the type of soils that are in the offer. The payment rate is calculated on a weighted average soil rental rate for the total offer. The second type of criteria under which land may be considered eligible is by classification of marginal pasture land. Only land located in specific locations is eligible to be considered to be classified marginal pasture land. The eligibility status receives a lesser rental rate than the land that is classified as cropland. Next, we have producer eligibility. Documentation of ownership must be on file prior to the acceptance of an offer. A producer must have owned the land for 12 months before the close of sign-up for general sign-up and grasslands. A producer must have owned land for 12 months before submitting an offer for a continuous sign-up offer. Landlords must offer tenants who have an interest in the acreage being offered an opportunity to participate in CRP. Landlords shall not reduce the number of tenants on a farm in anticipation to be enrolled in CRP. FSA provides CRP participants with annual rental payments as well as certain incentive payments and cost share assistance in return for establishing long-term resource-conserving cover. FSA bases rental payments on the relative productivity of the soils within each county and the average cash rent using data provided by the National Agricultural Statistics Service, also known as NASS. The soil rental rates are subject to an 85% proration for general sign-up and a 90% proration for continuous sign-up. The maximum CRP rental rate for each offer is calculated in advance of enrollment. The CRP grassland rates are based on 75% of the NASS pasture rate. FSA provides cost share assistance to participants who establish approved coverage on eligible cropland. The cost share assistance cannot exceed 50% of the participant's cost to establish approved practices. A sign-up incentive of 32.5% of the first full year annual rental payment is paid at contract approval on all newly enrolled continuous CRP contract acreage. A practice incentive payment of 5% is paid for installing the practice. Now, to go into a little bit more detail with the different types of sign-up, under the general enrollment, producers have the opportunity to offer land for CRP general enrollment annually during announced enrollment periods. Offers for CRP contracts are ranked according to the Environmental Benefits Index. And a few of the things that comes with that, FSA uses the following EBI factors to assess the environmental benefits for land: wildlife habitat benefits resulting from cover on contract acres, water quality benefits from reduced erosion, runoff, and leaching, on-farm benefits from reduced erosion, benefits that will likely endure beyond the contract period, quality benefits from reduced wind erosion, and cost. Under continuous CRP, environmentally sensitive land devoted to certain conservation practices may be enrolled in CRP at any time. Certain eligibility requirements still apply, but offers are not subject to competitive bidding, as in the general sign-up. I have listed a few of the CRP practices here, but we'll look at those a little bit more in depth in just a minute. With the CRP grasslands, landowners and operators can protect grassland, including rangeland and pasture land, while maintaining the areas as grazing lands. The program emphasizes support for grazing operations, plant and animal biodiversity, and grassland and lands containing shrubs and forbs under the greatest threat of conversion. Participants retain the right to conduct common grazing practices, produce hay, mow or harvest for seed production, subject to certain restrictions during the nesting season of bird species that are in significant decline or those that are protected under federal or state law, conduct fire rehabilitation, and construct fire breaks and fences. CRP grasslands does not require cropping history to be eligible for the program. Haying and grazing and harvesting for seed production is allowed as detailed in the conservation plan. CRP grasslands is a production-based program and will cost share cross-fencing and livestock water development, pipeline, and watering facilities. Now let's take a look at a few of the water quality practices that are offered for the program. Grass waterways are implemented to improve water quality and convey runoff without causing erosion or flooding. This cropland must meet the eligibility of having cropping history for 4 of the 6 years from 2012 to 2017. Shallow water areas for wildlife are used to develop shallow water areas to an average depth of 6 to 18 inches for wildlife. Provide water area for the majority of the year, and a filter strip or riparian buffer is established around the pool as a part of the shallow water area. Again, this must meet the cropland eligibility rules for 4 out of 6 years from looking at 2012 through 2017. Next, we have the filter strip. The purpose of a filter strip is to remove nutrients, sediment, organic matter, pesticides, and other pollutants from surface runoff and subsurface flow by deposition, absorption, plant uptake, denitrification, and other processes, and thereby reduce pollution and protect surface water and subsurface water quality while enhancing the ecosystem of the water body. Eligibility requirements for a filter strip again includes cropping history 4 of 6 years from 2012 to 2017, and that cropland is adjacent and parallel to perennial streams, seasoned streams, sinkholes, and karst areas. Other permanent water bodies that contain water cover all year, every year, and wetlands. The size requirements for a filter strip are a minimum width of 120 feet with a maximum width of minimum width of 20 feet with a maximum width of 120 feet. The vegetation for the site would be planted to a wildlife-friendly cool season grass, legume mix, or native warm season grass mix. Moving on to the riparian buffer. The buffer is used to protect surface and subsurface water quality while enhancing the water body ecosystem, create shade, and provide debris for aquatic species and provide habitat for wildlife. A riparian buffer can be on cropland or marginal pasture land. Again, your cropping history is 4 of 6 years, 2012 through 2017, and it must be adjacent and parallel to perennial streams, seasonal streams, sinkholes, and karst areas, other permanent water bodies that contain water all year, and wetlands. The marginal pasture land eligibility criteria is going to be area that is not cropland, forest land, or woodland. Marginal pasture land is adjacent and parallel to perennial streams, seasonal streams, sinkholes, and karst areas, and permanent water bodies that contain water cover all year and provide at least seasonal flow of surface water from the water body off of the farm. Your minimum width is going to be 35 foot to a max of 180. Some of the vegetation requirements are as follows. At least 3 hard mass species equally distributed by numbers shall comprise more than 80% of the stand. There should be a planting rate between 605 and 681 trees per acre. And if needed, a grass strip can be planted to contain at least 1 grass and at least 1 legume or forb. The marginal pasture land wildlife habitat buffers are to protect surface and subsurface water quality while enhancing the water body ecosystem, restore native plant communities, and enhance wildlife habitat. And again, the marginal pasture land eligibility criteria you see here would be applied to the marginal pasture land wildlife buffer. The size requirements for this buffer are a minimum width of 120 with a minimum 20 foot with a max of 120. The vegetation for the site is a mix of grasses, shrubs, and forbs. The practice must enhance grass, shrub, and the forb community and provide water quality improvement and wildlife habitat benefits. Next, we have habitat buffers for upland birds. The purpose of this practice is to provide food and cover for quail and upland birds in cropland areas. Secondary benefits may include reducing soil erosion from wind and water, increasing soil and water quality, and protecting and enhancing the on-farm ecosystem. These habitat buffers require cropping history 4 of 6 years, looking again at 2012 through 2017, and are located around crop and field edges. Whole fields are not to be enrolled, and fields less than 5 acres also shall not be enrolled. The size requirements for these buffers are a minimum width of 30 foot with a maximum width of 120. The vegetation, again, is going to be a mix of grasses, shrubs, and forbs. The practice must enhance the grass, shrub, and forb community and provide water quality improvement and wildlife and habitat benefits. Okay. Now, to go into a little bit more detail, after the participant has decided what type of practice would most benefit their operation, with the help of FSA and NRCS, we then can go into details of what type of management and maintenance is expected during the contract period. Once the practice is installed, there are different management practices that are required. Management practices are to prolong or improve the plant diversity and habitat benefits of the CRP practice. These activities are also planned by NRCS with the producer's participation, but may not be required for all practices. Management activities must ensure plant diversity and wildlife benefits while ensuring protection of the soil and water resources. Management activities must not include maintenance activities that are already required under the terms of the CRP contract, such as spot mowing or chemical treatment. A few of the management activities are as follows: light disking, grazing, prescribed mowing, prescribed burning, and interseeding or overseeding. Maintenance is used to maintain practice standards and prevent the development of invasive species. Cover maintenance is the producer's responsibility, and activities should be planned by NRCS and agreed to by the producer on the conservation plan in a logical and practical manner. Maintenance activities must be completed outside the primary nesting season that is established for Kentucky, and that runs from May 15th to August 1st. Oh, that kind of ties up the water quality practices that we have. Again, thank you for allowing me to join your meeting today. If anybody has any questions or if anyone is interested in enrolling their land into the CRP program, direct them to their nearest FSA office for assistance. That's all I have for today.